Hi, my name is William Meara, and I am an adventurer. I live a life less ordinary that's brought me from backpacking war zones to some of the most feared countries on the face of this planet. Today, I'm going to share with you some of the adventures that hit headlines across the world and what I've learned from almost 4 years wandering the globe. I grew up in Dublin in Ireland to an entrepreneurial and caring father and a loving but very troubled mother. My mother grew up in 1960s Catholic Ireland, a time when clerical sex and physical abuse was rampant in the church and in schools. If you had a child outside of wedlock, the child was confiscated from you, and you were locked in slave-like laundries, never to be seen. My mother's mother was an oppressive woman who had special needs, and so my mother ran into the arms of a man, a dangerous man, looking for sanctuary at just the tender age of 18. He became her tormentor for many years to come. But despite all of that, she blossomed into a loving, caring mother of 6 children. When she met my father, she had already had 3, so she had another 3 with my father. But because of the events that happened in her early life, she later suffered with mental health issues, overconsumption of prescription drugs, and alcohol abuse, until unfortunately, my dear loving mother passed away in 2010. I never judged my mother for her vices or her weaknesses. She was a hugely intelligent woman, a loving woman, a caring woman, but she had huge ambitions that she never got to fulfill. So have you ever sat there, staring into space, sitting on the toilet or in the shower, and wondered, what am I doing? Because that's where I was. I spent all my time throwing myself into things to distract myself from ever dealing with the death of my mother. Event management, digital marketing, consultancy work, commercial development, an engineering degree, several business ventures, but nothing ever really stuck. And so sick of it all, I got everything I had, put it in a small school bag, and I got on a plane. I sorrowfully said goodbye to the love of my life, a prosperous career, and said goodbye to my family and my friends. But I'd finally let myself feel, to give myself space to feel shit instead of burying it deep in my mind. And this was my eureka moment. This was the moment I was going to dedicate my life to adventure, to my mother, and living the life that she never got a chance to live. Yes, I was going to go to places that she didn't want me to go to and do things that she probably wouldn't have let me do, but I was going to live a life worth living and live it for her. I found myself in isolation meditation retreats, psychedelic experiences, fist fights in Beijing, being robbed of my money, left stranded, fallen in love, felt heartbreak, had spiritual awakenings and wanted to go home, but kept on going. Fallen ill, been chased by wild dogs. I've been to cocaine-fueled raves in Shanghai. I've missed uncountable amounts of flights, some by accident and some on purpose. I've slept in gaming centers, bus stops, roundabouts, park benches, abandoned houses and shepherd's huts. I've slept in 24-hour Korean saunas, tents, caravans, monasteries, parks, streets, anywhere I could close my eyes became home, as you can see. So I wandered. And I wandered to China, the Far East, where I was always obsessed with the mystics and the ancient history, but mainly to fulfill my childhood dream of becoming Bruce Lee. And so I lived life as a Buddhist monk, learning Tai Chi and Kung Fu from Shaolin masters in Dali, Yunnan, spending all my days in tortuously difficult training regimes. I'd wake up at 4:30 every morning and run around mountains with boulders on my head, conditioning my arms and my legs, my muscles and my bones, spending hours in tortuously difficult positions, fulfilling an endless list of rules and always obeying the master. This enlightenment stuff wasn't going to be easy. And so I traveled to Iran because I thought that you couldn't. And bored of the mosques and the beautiful cradle of civilization, I wandered off the beaten path and I couch surfed in opium dens, meeting some of the most fascinating and intriguing characters on the face of this planet, some of which who managed to get me held captive in a black market warehouse in North Iran. I found myself in a passionate romance, fulfilling the role of a husband to my new wife, so that we could avoid the ever-watchful gaze of the moral police. The hospitality, the farmyard raves, the house parties, the intrigue. This was a country completely different from the one that I thought I knew. Iranian people were beautiful inside and on the outside, and their generosity was out of this world. Yet for some reason, we'll only ever read about the proxy wars in Yemen, the nuclear arms deals, and the oppressive, totalitarian, theocratic ruling regime. And so I got intrigued by these countries that have been demonized by Western media. And I met a Finnish man, and he said, you can't go home until you've visited one of the most beautiful countries with the most beautiful people on earth. He said, where's that? He said, Pakistan. I thought he was crazy. And so I wandered to Pakistan, and I met smugglers and artists and poets. I trekked across the world's tallest mountains and stumbled across ruby miners and goat farmers. I went to target practice with anti-Taliban vigilante forces to test my aim. And then I met a journalist who invited me on TV to talk live to over 60 million people and tell them that, yeah, Pakistan was actually pretty safe and pretty fun, and I was having a good time. And my favorite dish was biryani. I wandered into shoe factories, milk farms. Everywhere I went, people invited me back to their home. And despite what people say, I found it to be one of the most beautiful countries that I've been to. But I didn't know that until I went there and met the people. And that's why I stepped behind the veil of the world's most secretive state, North Korea. And there I went drinking in the local bars. I got my ass kicked by a 10-year-old at table tennis. I taught an English class, visited the DMZ, and even tried, albeit terribly, at karaoke. Although life is incredibly tough and the regime is incredibly cruel in North Korea, the people are resilient and durable. But these are things that you won't read about in the media. And finding the truth and reading between the lines of the media is why I found myself backpacking to the frontline fight against ISIS in Iraq during the war for Mosul. Standing shoulder to shoulder with the general of the Peshmerga army, with my friend in full military uniform. And then I had one of those moments again. What the hell am I doing? But this time, it was rhetorical. Under intense briefing and armed convoy, we got to learn what life was like as a soldier living in the front lines of Iraq in the war. We got to learn what it was like growing up in Iraq during the reign of Saddam Hussein. And we got to learn, most importantly, what was actually happening at a time when the world's media all seemed to be contradicting each other. Standing at the sandbags was a sobering experience as we got to learn the truth. And we learned that the Kurdish people are an honorable, a noble, and a strong people. But they showed us the strife of a war-torn people. And in an online 24-hour campaign, we raised huge funds to buy hats and socks and gloves and boots and footballs and baby milk for the kids in these cold winter North Iraq refugee camps, because they're often left fighting with the leftovers of what the adults take. We could only do so little. We left some smiles on their face, but at least we did something, because that's what it's about. It's about doing something. I'm here, traveling across India for 100 days in a 1998 Matador, converted into a caravan as part of a project called Caravan Chronicles. We're spreading caravanning as a way to travel, and along the way, we're meeting people who are shaping India's future, conserving your wildlife, talking to children in your classrooms, picking up rubbish in forests, and dining with the tribal communities. And that's made all the difference to my understanding of what real India is about. But all of these experiences are wasted and worth nothing if I don't learn from them. And so over the last 4 years of wandering to some of the weirdest places in the world, I've learned some of life's most crucial lessons. And for me, it's built a code of conduct for living. And it's a code I want to share with you. The first is that we are creatures of comfort. But leaving your comfort zone is going to change your life. Leaving that zone opens you up to anxiety and stress. And stress is such a dirty little word. But a little bit of stress, good stress, is a powerful motivator and a catalyst for growth. Because no one ever evolved in sticking to habit and routine. They never achieved greatness while on autopilot mode. History was made by the few visionaries doing something when everybody else was out busy working in the field. We grow up to fear failure and become aversive to risk. But if growth is lifelong and we want to keep learning, we must keep continuing to risk failure. Because when we challenge ourselves, we rise to the occasion. Start today. See that person beside you? Give them a hug. See how weird that feels. Lie down outside in the foyer and just feel uncomfortable. Get comfortable with being uncomfortable. The second thing that I learned the hard way was that seeing is believing. Because the truth is rarely, if ever, served up to you on a plate. You got to read between the lines. You got to ask questions. Or in my case, and I encourage you to do the same, go and see it for yourself. Because everything ever written was written by a person. And there's no one in this world that is immune from motivations or biases. Out of the 27 media publications around the world that covered our Iraq story, only one talked about the humanitarian work. Everyone else thought it was a very entertaining spectacle about the sensational story of two young backpackers and why they were in Iraq. Some even made up their own stories about us waking up drunk fighting ISIS, which I'll admit was quite funny. And the last thing, and the most important thing, is to do what you want to. Now that sounds like something that's very easy to do, but how many of you wake up every morning and go, I do what I want to? Good for you. It comes at a price. I don't own very much of anything. I've got a school back behind the stage here with pretty much most of my belongings in it. I don't have a house, I don't have a car, I don't have a girlfriend. I don't see my family that often. I often miss my life in Dublin, the comforts of home, and my friends and my family, who I see online having kids, getting married, getting a house and settling down. And I often get asked by my dad, when are you going to settle down and live a normal life? We can all choose to live a normal life. Carbon copy lives of our friends follow the trend. But the beautiful thing about life is that most of us get an opportunity to choose how we live it. I've chosen a different path. I have stories, not houses, experiences, not cars, and I wouldn't change it for the world because none of us are getting out of here alive. No one on their deathbed ever wished that they'd worked a little harder, that they'd built a bigger house, that they got the latest iPhone. No. If you want to achieve something, now is your time. My mother once told me something, and it stood with me always. She said, William, don't try to be anyone else. Be the someone else that everyone else wants to be. Just be you. But hurry up. You don't have much time. None of us do. And she was right. This is for her. Thank you.